Get you on there.
There we go.
Try my
Good morning,
best.
everyone, and welcome to Perth County Council, the second day of February. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everyone could please bow their head for a moment of reflection. Thank you. I'll read our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Perth County is situated on the traditional land of Ananasha Bay, who have a long-standing relationship with the land and water throughout the region. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit people who call this territory home. As a county, we have a responsibility for reconciliation and the continued stewardship of the land on which we live and work. If anyone has pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now or as the meeting goes along. We'll move on to confirmation of the agenda. Is there anything anyone wishes to add or change in the agenda? Seeing nothing, we have a motion that February 2nd, 2023 agenda be approved. Moved by Councillor Duncan, second by Councillor Aitchison. All in favor? Carried. We have 6 items on our consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like pulled? Do they have any questions on it? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that council receives the consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.6 and approves the January 26, 2023 council minutes. Moved by Deputy Warden Callum, second by Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we do have a delegation this morning. We welcome Jeremy Go and Ann Haynes from MPAC. And welcome you to the county, and the floor is yours for your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I believe there is a PowerPoint. I think bringing it up. Fantastic. Okay, good stuff. Well, through the mayor to council, good morning. I'll start out by thanking you for giving me a bit of your time this morning on your agenda. For those of you who I have not met, my name is Jeremy Goff. I'm your account manager in municipal and stakeholder relations at MPAC. I'd like to congratulate all of you on your election wins, and I do look forward to working with each of you throughout 2023 and beyond. Whether you're newly elected or a seasoned elected official, please know that we are here to help. We have a whole municipal and stakeholder relations team who can answer any questions you may have. To start, municipal relationships are a priority to MPAC, and because of that, we want to continue to focus on elevating municipal and property owner experiences. Today, I'll be sharing who MPAC is and what our role is in property assessment. Next slide, please. So at MPAC, we are Ontario's property experts. Our job is to assess and classify more than 5.5 million properties across Ontario with a combined value of more than $3 trillion. In the past year, Ontario has grown by approximately 45,000 new residential homes, and in 2022, we added more than $37 billion to Ontario's assessment rolls. Every municipality uses our assessments to make informed decisions about their community, including the distribution of property taxes. Ontario's property tax system and these assessments generate approximately $30 billion in tax revenue annually. Perth County lower tiers saw over $169 million in new assessment added in 2022 and currently has over a $12 billion total base value. We are going to be taking a better look at those assessment numbers a little bit further on in the presentation. Next slide, please. There are 4 key players in Ontario's property assessment and taxation system, all of those with a different role and interest in the process. The provincial government, specifically the Ministry of Finance, is responsible for setting assessment and taxation legislation as well as policies. They also determine the education property tax rates. There is also an independent body that adjudicates appeals of MPAC's assessed values, the ARB. This also falls under the jurisdiction of the province. Next is MPAC, an independent, not-for-profit corporation funded by all Ontario municipalities. Our role is to accurately assess and classify all properties in Ontario. We do this in compliance with the Assessment Act and regulations set by the Government of Ontario. We are accountable to the province, municipalities, and property taxpayers of Ontario through our board of directors, which is comprised of provincial, municipal, and taxpayer representatives appointed by the Minister of Finance. Municipalities determine their budget requirements, set tax rates, and collect property taxes to pay for municipal services such as police, fire, roads, recreation, water, among many others. Municipalities use MPAC's assessments and established tax rates to distribute their tax requirements to taxpayers. And finally, the property owners who pay the property tax bills and help set market value through the ongoing property purchases and sales. Next slide. As you can imagine, maintaining Ontario's property database is very important. Property data is continuously updated so that municipal records are accurate when our municipal stakeholders are making important tax decisions. Maintaining Ontario's property database includes inspecting and assessing new construction, additions, and renovations promptly, responding to property owner inquiries, and working to help them understand their assessment. Also supporting municipalities. This is done through things such as offering Municipal Connect, where municipal staff members can obtain the primary source of assessment-related information required on a day-to-day basis. Working collaboratively on projects that are important to you, our municipal partners, such as digital building permitting or e-permitting. Processing tax applications, approved land severances, and consolidations. We also have important statutory duties such as handling requests for reconsiderations and maintaining people data by tracking school support for over 5.5 million properties. Next slide. Monitoring the market and assessing newly built and renovated properties are things we do every day to keep our property data current. We also periodically update every single property assessment in Ontario based on the same legislated valuation date. We call this an assessment update or a reassessment. The valuation date for the most recent assessment update, which took effect in 2017, was January the 1st, 2016. This is when we determined what every single property in the province could have reasonably sold for in its current state and condition at a particular point in time. Regular reevaluation of properties ensures that assessments stay up to date and similar properties of similar value in the same municipality pay similar property taxes. Provincial legislation determines when MPAC is to conduct a province-wide assessment update. The province sets the valuation date and determines the update cycle. Next slide. The province-wide assessment reassessment that was scheduled to occur in 2020 was postponed by the provincial government to provide stability and certainty to Ontarians and enable municipalities to focus on responding to the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, property assessments continue to be based on a legislated valuation date of January the 1st, 2016. This should not have a negative effect on the financial impact for municipalities as MPAC continues to maintain and update the assessment roll each year to reflect changes such as new construction or improvements to properties. For new builds and structures, MPAC determines a valuation as of January 1st, 2016 to ensure equity when comparing to other existing properties. While MPAC awaits an announcement from the provincial government about the next province-wide assessment update, January 1st, 2016 continues to be the Ontario legislated valuation date. As noted earlier, this is a fixed date to which all properties are valued. Although the assessment update remains paused, our work continues to keep property data up to date. Property owners will still receive an updated property assessment notice from MPAC if there are any in-year changes to their properties. In November, MPAC sent out almost 800,000 notices to reflect changes to properties. Nearly 3,300 of these notices were in Perth County. Once the province announces when the next assessment update will take place and what that valuation date will be, we will certainly let you know and can focus on having meaningful conversations as we work to finalize assessed values within your communities. Next slide. Ontario's property tax system is based on everyone paying their portion of what it costs to deliver community services. To do this, all properties are assigned a value at a common valuation date, as noted previously. This principle is called current value assessment. This is the price a property might reasonably be expected to sell for if sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer after an appropriate amount of time and exposure on the open market. Next slide. So let's talk briefly about valuation. In Ontario, there are 3 industry-wide standardized approaches to valuing property. The first of these approaches is the direct comparison approach, and this valuation approach is used primarily on residential properties, condos, and vacant land, for example. With this approach, we analyze recent sales of comparable properties that were sold for a similar or identical use to the property being valued to provide an indication of value. It is also important that only valid open market transactions are used in this analysis, meaning sales between related parties, forced sales, for example, are not included in the analysis. Next slide. When looking at the valuation of a residential home, although our analysis tool considers over 200 factors, there are 5 key factors that affect property value. The location of the property, your home's neighborhood and market area affect what others would be willing to pay for it if sold. Neighborhoods are dynamic. We regularly review and update our information to reflect changes that impact the neighborhood, such as municipal zoning changes or emerging developments. The size of your lot. We calculate that lot by multiplying the frontage by the depth. We take these measurements from the property's legal descriptions in the parcel register at the land registry office, a land tax affidavit, and or a land transfer tax statement from the land titles office. If a property has an irregular shape, we calculate out an effective frontage and effective depth. Next up is quality of construction. Quality of construction can range from class 1, which is the lowest, to class 10, which describes the highest degree of quality. Total square footage of the living area based on exterior measurements of the total area is also a key factor. And finally, the age of buildings on your property. The value of your property is influenced by the age of your house and any other structures on the property. This can be adjusted based on any renovations, additions, or changes that have occurred over time. Next slide. Next up is the income approach. This approach is used for industrial malls, multi-residential properties, office buildings, and shopping centers. In the income producing properties, the ability to earn revenue is directly tied to its current value. To value these properties, we need to determine how much revenue it could generate. To clarify, it's not the revenue being generated by the occupant, but rather the rent that the occupant is paying to the landlord that we use to value properties utilizing the income approach. This method requires a detailed analysis of the income and expenses, both for the property being valued and other similar properties, to determine how much income a property could be expected to generate if sold on the open market. Those 2 factors create a capitalization rate that helps us determine the property's assessed value. Next slide. Lastly is the cost approach, and it typically is used for general purpose industrial properties, small retail, warehousing, just to name a few. This approach is used when a property type is unique and less commonly sold on the open market, as we cannot rely on either the direct comparison or the income approaches to determine its current value due to lack of data available. The cost approach is a 3-step process. First, we calculate the cost of replacing buildings, structures, or other accessible fixtures on the lands. Then we apply a deduction for depreciation on all structures due to age, as well as functional or economic adjustments, if there are conditions impacting the value of that specific property. Finally, we determine the value of the land and we add it to the building calculations to produce an overall assessment. Next slide. So what draws our attention to a property? It's typically one of a few things. a market sale, a request from a municipality or a property owner, building permit activity, an RFR or an appeal. MPAC's role is to take building permits and plans and turn those into assessment for our municipal partners. Our municipal stakeholders rely on MPAC assessments to levy property tax. The sooner MPAC can deliver assessment, the sooner our municipal stakeholders can realize new revenue. Every year, MPAC processes on average 300,000 building permits for new development or renovations. We are the only organization with a data set of all building permits in Ontario. Our understanding of this data gives us a unique perspective on ways to modernize its collection and exchange to support our municipal partners. So some unique insights based on this data that we have captured. In 2021, Ontario saw more than 48,000 new residential homes constructed, with just under 50% being detached homes. Condos are getting smaller, while detached homes are getting larger. Ontario condominiums are 35% smaller on average than they were 25 years ago, while the average detached home is 25% larger. In the 1990s, the average condominium in Ontario peaked at approximately 1,100 square feet. The most recent MPAC data shows the average condo today is about 700 square feet. In comparison, single-family detached homes were approximately 2,000 square feet in the mid-90s, and today a typical single-family home on average is around 2,500 square feet. Next slide. So after we assess property or change an assessment, we mail a property owner a property assessment notice. Sometimes property owners do disagree with their assessed value. A property owner may approach you and say they disagree with their assessment. What is important to remember is that property assessments are not taxation. If you do get an inquiry, you can ask the property owner a few questions. One, if they could sell their home or their property on January 1st, 2016 for their current assessed value. If they visited About My Property to review the information MPAC has on file regarding their property to ensure that everything is in fact correct. If they looked at About My Property to see what similar homes in their own neighborhoods are being valued for comparison and equity purposes. If the property owner still disagrees with their assessment, they have the option to file a request for reconsideration, and we will review that completely free of charge. There is also the ability to file a request or to file an appeal with the Assessment Review Board, commonly referred to as the ARB. The fastest way for a property owner to start a review is by filing an RFR on About My Property. Property owners can also file an RFR directly through MPAC's website at mpac.ca. Next slide. So let's spend just a brief moment to address the relationship between property taxes and assessment. Assessments distribute taxes. They do not determine the taxes paid. When a province-wide assessment update occurs, the most important factor is not how much the assessed value of a property has changed, but rather how the assessed value has changed relative to the average change in that class, in that community. This concept is explained further in a recent toolkit that we shared out with our municipal partners. Next slide. So in anticipation of the next province-wide reassessment, we have implemented a strategy to address misconceptions about this relationship between assessed value and taxation, including resources for our municipalities that will ensure when an announcement is made, we're ready with the support that's needed. This digital toolkit is also available on mpac.ca to help municipalities, including elected officials, mitigate misinformation and provide support and resources to educate and inform property owners. Within the digital toolkit, you will find a new video that we produced on how your property taxes are calculated based on the assessed value of your home. Next slide. So we won't jump into the video today, but it's about 3 minutes long in length. If you have not watched it yet, I would encourage you to take a look at it. It's a great resource that you can share out on your own social media, for instance, or on the municipality's end, on your website, for example, and really helps simplify and better understand that process, that relationship between taxation and assessment. So I would encourage you to take a look at that video if you have not already. Next slide. So next up here is a look at your overall assessment base at the Perth County level. So what you're seeing here is the greatest share falls within the farm category, equaling $8.7 billion worth of assessment, equaling 69% of your base. Next up on there is residential properties coming in at $2.9 billion worth of assessment, 23% of your base. Followed by commercial, $297 million, 2.39% of your base. Industrial next, $228 million, 1.184% of your base. Special and exempt properties next at 221%. And then finally, multi-residential properties coming in at $42 million and less than 1% of your base for a combined total of $12.4 billion total assessment base based on property class in Perth County. So this is just sort of a high level overview of what your assessment base looks like in Perth County and how it is split up. Next slide, please. So as I wrap up, I'd like to thank you for having me here today and remind you that we do want to stay connected. If not already, please make sure that you subscribe to In Touch, MPAC's monthly municipal e-newsletter, which can be done through the mpac.ca website. We also do have a library of digital resources that are available to you for sharing out as needed. And be sure to reach out to me if you have any questions or are looking for resources that you can share. Next slide. And finally, as we wrap up today, I'll finish by sharing my contact information along with our regional manager, Ann Haynes. We are here to support you along with your staff in your lower tier municipalities and at the county as well. So please do reach out at any time if you have any questions or need to get in touch. Don't be hesitant. That's what we're here for. And I'll pass it over to Ann to say a few words as well.
Sure. Jeremy, thanks for having us. And I did see you last, I think in the fall of 2021 virtually. And I was on the hot seat there. So I was glad to share that Jeremy had a turn today. We're happy to be here in Perth County in person. And I did attend your Perth County Municipal Association Day. That was awesome. I'd like to come back for that annually. So it's good to meet some of you there. I just came back on the heels of the Roma conference, so I know I've seen some of you at the conference. Some of you dropped by the booth to say hello. So thanks for that. And I just want to highlight the really good partnership we have with Perth County. So Jeremy worked really, really closely with the Perth County Planning Process Mapping group to just really the customer journey around severances and how that works and where we fit in and all the other departments and how they fit in. And that went over so well that we put it in our In Touch that Jeremy just touched on and highlighted Perth County and our partnership with you. So thank you for that. Thank you for your staff for that and that heavy lift. And also the finance staff, we work very, very closely with Corey and his team as well. And I met Lori in person at the county day. So just a real plug to say it's been a pleasure to work with your staff and we're here to help you. If you have any questions about assessment, we are going to do another webinar similar to what Jeremy covered off today. If you didn't get enough of it in March on our monthly webinar, March 23rd. So if you or any of your friends missed it, feel free to attend that. It'll be virtual. Thanks for having us.
And with that, we're happy to take any questions if there are any. If not, I will pass it back over to the warden. Thank you very much.
Okay, questions? You?
Would this presentation, would that be part of our minutes? Like, could we go and check that in our minutes?
I'm sure that staff can send that out.
Certainly through the warden, we will put it in your county reference manual, your portal, your information reference library, and we'll let you know that can be in there today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Questions from Corey at all? No? Okay. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you coming and we hope that the government decides that we're going to get moving on the assessments and bring them up to date. So thanks again for your presentation. Okay, we do have a motion that council receives a presentation titled MPAC 101 for information. Moved by Councillor Orr, second by Councillor Jankowski. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, next item on our agenda under services, we have the forestry program administrative report, and I believe that will be Sean.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, to the warden, and good morning to you and council. This report's just a summary of the annual forestry program administrative activities. For 2022, the county received 105 notices of intent for MOIs. Please note that the number in the executive summary is the correct number, not the number in the. So this represents an average of 9 NOIs per month for all these 37 NOIs this year. January and December saw the highest volume of submissions. Those 2 months representing about 35% of all the 2022 submissions. The lowest volume was in the springtime with only 1 NOIs. Additional activities included updating the ash tree amendment in the forest conservation bylaw and renewal of Martin Smith's contract for weed and tree effector services until December 31st. 6. And that's everything I highlighted in the report. I'm taking questions at this time.
okay, any questions for Sean? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that Perth County Council receives the 2022 Forestry Program Administrative Report for information. Moved by Councillor Castleberg, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next on our item, budget, is the budget, the capital budget presentation, and we're going to continue from the last meeting, we're on tab 2, fleet and equipment. So, John and Bill, are you taking it away? Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Warden Agates, and good morning, council. Continuation of the capital budget today, and we're on fleet, our last component of our capital budget. This year's capital fleet budget includes the procurement of 7 fleet assets, a backhoe, wheel loader, 2 public works pickups, paramedic services pickup, and 2 ambulances. 4 of those 7 assets are carried forward from 2022, either because they have not been procured yet or they haven't been delivered. And the 2 ambulances were pre-approved in 2022. We are noting that we are experiencing supply issues with both ambulances and snow plows, and council has seen and will continue to see reports seeking pre-budget approval to procure these units early and receive delivery at a more appropriate time. I'll hand it over to Corey, who will go through our 10-year continuity schedule.
Thanks, Sean. In relation to the next slide there, Sean. In relation to the 10-year continuity, fleet have been hit with significant increases over cost in the past few years. But within the operational budget, you'll notice that we are looking at increasing our equipment rates and our fleet rates to try to generate the profit necessary. Essentially, this is what houses the profit to replace those assets as they come for renewal. So that blue line is essentially our money that we generate through revenue, less our expenses for our operational assets to develop that amount. So for 2023, it's about $654,000 to be generated and put back into the reserve. And I'll pass it back over to John.
To Bill now to go through our fleet units to be procured in 2023.
Okay, thank you. I will just quickly go through these project details regarding the fleet replacements planned for 2023. Starting with backhoe. This is a replacement of vehicle 043, which is a 2005 CAT backhoe. It was originally purchased back in 2005, and the asset class is on a 15-year life cycle replacement schedule. So we have surpassed its planned and scheduled replacement date. The asset is in overall poor condition. There's over 8,000 engine hours on the unit. It's still operable. We use it quite a bit. However, it is due to be replaced to maintain its safe operability. We can move on to the next one, Sean. Also included in this year's budget is the replacement of the wheel loader. This is our larger of the two wheel loaders that we own at the county, primarily used for loading material. And also we use this when we are doing any of our shoulder maintenance or capital shoulder placement. We did provide council with a report back in 2001, I believe, regarding the loader assets that we have here at the county. And at that time, it was recommended that we included this purchase in a 2022 capital program. However, we did not have that tender issued, so we're looking to carry forward that project into the 2023 budget and look to replace that loader this year. And we will be working with some of our member municipalities as well to try to issue a joint tender for this loader, the backhoe, as well as some other heavy equipment planned to be replaced at the member municipalities. I think that's all I have. We have budgeted $385,000 for that loader replacement. Sean, we can move on to the next one, which is our pickup truck replacements. This one also includes a carry forward of a truck that was ordered last year. It's a 3/4 ton unit. However, it won't be delivered until second quarter of this year. So we are carrying forward a portion of this budget to fund that procurement, as well as an additional pickup truck replacement, which is vehicle 1418. It's a 3/4 ton truck, and we will be planning to replace that with a 1/2 ton 4x4 truck for public departments. Next, we have the EMS replacements. As John mentioned, 2 ambulances to be replaced this year. They were pre-approved and ordered last year. Delivery is expected June this year. And similarly, paramedic service pickup truck that was ordered last year will not be delivered until this year. So funds being carried forward to fund that replacement as well. That completes the fleet replacement. And if there's any questions on those, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions, Councilor McKenzie?
We had, I'm gonna turn my back so I can talk to John here. We had talked at one time, looking into, the excavator goes through a backhoe. I assume the backhoe is probably still more feasible, or less expensive than a versatile, is it that we've done that right?
Through the warden, we're going to continue to maybe look at that, but I think we're landing on that the backhoe is a more useful unit for our operations.
Councilor Duncan?
Thank you. Is there a reason we went with a 1/2 ton pickup to replace a 3/4 ton?
Through the warden, it's just a replacement schedule. So we have 3 3/4 tons in our within our fleet, our pickup fleet. And this year we are replacing one of those. We will still have 3 3/4 ton units in our inventory. But this one we will be replacing with a 1/2 ton unit.
Yeah, so I understand where you're.
Okay.
Yep, where you're going with that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councilor Aitchison?
So do we have any idea that we're expecting those ambulances in summer? Like, is there anything any close to being confirmation on that? Because I've noticed all the budgets in the other centers. And Toronto's ordered up another 20 ambulances, and Regional Waterloo's getting a bunch, and Middlesex getting 7. Great, and their budgets are up 20%. So I'm thinking the demand for those things is gonna be unbelievable, probably the worst it's ever been. And I know we're on the queue, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna get that.
So through the warden, we are on the queue. And last time that we ordered ambulances through Crestline Demirs, they honored us in the order of the queue, and we have been hearing that the ambulances have been delivered in the appropriate time. Well, I will say in the timeframes that they've been saying. So they have said June. Last time they were about 2 months later than what they had said. So we might be looking at, if that was to be consistent, July, August or something like that, but we are expecting it mid-year.
Great. This has been a while.
Agreed. It's frustrating.
Okay, other questions? Nope, seeing no more questions. Okay, we'll continue.
Through the warden, next section would be medical equipment. So Mike. Yes.
The warden, hi.
Hi.
There's a couple of capital items which are scheduled replacements for paramedic services that I'll go over today. And this is our routine replacements and also the enhancement of the power load stretcher system. So the first thing on here is the ongoing replacement of small medical equipment. Every year we have certain equipment that might break and or it might be coming up to the end of its life. So we have, for example, suction units that might be part of our fleet of suction units might be needing to be replaced. Scoop stretchers might be inspected and found that we need to replace them or repair them. And so this budget line supports those purchases. Second thing on the list that we'll be working on this year is the power load stretcher system. So this is the second last year of the power load stretcher system that council has invested in the past. And we are seeing great return on investment in terms of having these power stretchers, and they are working very well, both in our ambulances and for paramedics through feedback and also through reduction of musculoskeletal injuries and also patient comfort. So we have 2 stretchers that are getting added to our fleet this year, and they are replacing old stretchers that are not the power load stretchers. So that's on the books this year as well. And then the next thing is our public access defibrillators. This is a carryover from last year. We have put the replacement of public access defibrillators on pause during COVID. And now that we're emerging from it and we're in a recovery, we'll be looking at this year, and our coordinator of logistics will be looking at replacing those during 2023. And then finally, before my time, we had a schedule of replacing and maintaining simulation equipment for paramedic services. And there's some small items in terms of maintenance to the mannequins and things that we have to do simulation with our paramedics that are up for replacement this year. And those are in addition to the other things that you've heard through Public Works in terms of replacement of the vehicles, those are our items this year that we have for replacement. And I turn it back over to you.
Okay, any questions? Nope, no questions. Okay. John? Say something.
If I could get to Tyler, do we have a recommendation for pre-budget for capital projects? Thank you.
Okay, so any questions of the capital budget? What you heard last week, what you've heard today? Anyone have anything they want to bring up? No? Okay, then we do have a motion that council receives.
But unfortunately, I couldn't make last meeting, so I missed some of the capital. And you went over most of the road work last week. Can you get any ballpark idea where the cost of asphalt's gonna be. Like, they usually get chatting around, so.
Through the warden, we did have a graphic in the presentation just showing the AC index. If you give me a minute,
So,
that presentation is in your council portal under public
oh, is it? Okay.
folder. But I can quickly just tell you where it's kind of sitting right now. It's about, it's sitting in around $1,182 as of December of 2022.
Okay, anyone else? An ouch, yes. No questions, and we have a motion that council receives the 2023 capital budget presentations and that council authorized staff to tender 2023 capital projects with awarding of tenders to be brought back to council for approval. Need a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Kassenberg. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our operating budget presentations. Summary. So the first is the summary. Is Corey taking it away?
Through the warden, thank you very much. This presentation will be just a brief overview for myself, but you will be hearing from each division in relation to their 2023 budgets going forward into the operation for this year. Next slide, Sean. Just a general overview of the format of the budget. Our operating budgets are broken down by firstly non-departmental. It's essentially the section of there's no particular division that is providing that kind of service. It does house our council grants, non-departmental shared services, and general insurance. The next would be the office of the CAO, and they would inform you of the CAO division, human resources, economic development, tourism, and emergency management. Followed by corporate services, which houses the legislative services, finance, information technology, court services, and archives. And finally, the last two larger services that we have are public works, which is broken down between administration, roads, facilities, and fleet, and our paramedic services. The format in the binder is a 3-year operating budget. Each section has a divisional business plan, and within it provides financials providing the 3-year forecast, as well as projected actuals for 2022. Next slide, Sean. So overall, if you follow along on page 100, the 2023 proposed operating budget is about $16,431,000. Which is an increase of about $1,668,000 from our 2022 approved budget. Operation to operational budget, that's 11.3% increase from the prior year's approved. It is a 9.21% increase from the prior year's overall budget, and broken down between our capital and our operations. The combined total of the 1% capital and the 9.21 gets your 10.23%. Next slide, Sean. So within there, on page 103 of the binder is council's budget. The major increases within council budgets, and it's showing about a $30,000 increase, is the honorariums and meeting fees increase based on COLA, as well as a $15,000 addition to professional development, just in relation to orientation for council. And then there's also an additional $4,000 increase to the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. And that is the overall changes within 2023. I'll follow through these items conceptually, and then we can go through if there's any questions from council. Next slide, Sean. Next slide is grants. This was a new program that was implemented during the 2023 budget process. It has a current forecasted amount of about $8,000 or $9,000. This information that council is reviewing will come back as a report in a further meeting. currently within the process, we're still reviewing those applications from our constituents. Next slide. This area is made up of a lot of revenues and expenses. It's page 105 of the budget binder. It does contain revenues and expenses that are not attributed to any individual division. It houses our taxation revenue. It houses our Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. It holds the community transportation program. It has our reserve interest, and our biggest expense on there is our cost of the municipal annual fee. The items within that section, next slide, sorry, Sean. You'll notice that there's about 212,000 forecast in 2023 to be used from the levy stabilization reserve to mitigate our OMPF reductions. To note within that chart, it identifies our balance within the reserve, the top line, as well as what we're using to offset the reduction and our reduction overall. We're still looking to lose about $740,000 annual revenue from the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, as it is all transitional money, and that transition money will be eliminated. To note, the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund at the local levels, 3 out of the 4 municipalities are now out of transitional money. So within their current envelopes, they will continue to see revenue from the province in relation to our particular areas of farm area measure to help with the change in the ratios back in 98. Next slide, Sean. Within the budget, we have our cost shared services. Just last week, we met with Municipal Shared Services Committee. These items are slightly not as high as what they need to be for the purpose of those asks from the outside boards. But you'll notice that if you look at the bottom line, health unit, the mitigation money that the health unit is currently receiving, I had eliminated that for the purpose of our forecasts. So what we might see is that amount come down with the other amounts within Spruce Lodge and social services to increase. I put paramedic services on here because it is also a shared service that we provide partner municipalities, our single tiers, which is Stratford and the town of St. Mary's. Next slide. Essentially, the last part of our general area is our general insurance. This is on page 109, and it is looking at about an increase based on our quote from about 12% from 2022. Next slide. And as for that, if there's any specific questions on the general areas of non-departmental law, I'll try and happy to answer them.
Okay, questions? on that presentation? No, no questions. Okay, we will move on. And next is the office of the CAO. So Lori.
Thank you. Wait till Sean pulls that up. Next slide. So the Office of the CAO, our core business service is ensuring the long-term viability of the corporation. We do that by administering, coordinating and directing the business affairs of the organization. We are responsible for the overseeing of all business units, advancing council priorities, and accountable for the organization's performance. And certainly council, I did include, you've seen this more than once, but always happy to promote the many accomplishments of the organization with all our department contributions. In your budget binders, we do have our corporate priorities that support the strategic plan for the year 2022, also forecasts out what we have planned for 2023. And so those many accomplishments, those are the ones that are attached to the strategic plan that we have right now. We will be refreshing our strategic plan. This doesn't represent everything the corporation does. There's much, much more beyond these, I think it's 11 pages of activities and achievements that all the departments have experienced over the past year. Our performance, next slide, our performance was reported earlier in January, and the summary of key activities for 2022 is mentioned. For example, we have advanced the strategic plan in those areas. We have received significant funding from the provincial grants in order to have large reviews done, corporate organization, paramedic services deployment, public works winter maintenance implementation. We had a great IT GIS strategic plan review and emergency management service delivery review for all 7 municipalities within the geographic area of Perth County, which was just reported on at last meeting. The development of administrative practices, including program documents to serve as reference, training and business continuity tools. That's just one example of the administrative practices that we've brought forward. Community engagement and public education initiatives have been brought forward and supported throughout the organization by the communications officer. And development of Perth County's land acknowledgement is one example, as well as the reference handbook, portal library, and many more. Opportunities and challenges. So ongoing campus construction is one of that I would say for our department of 2, Sarah and myself, because our offices were displaced by the elevator project, the construction going on there. So right now we did vacate our offices. And so we work in multiple locations. Sometimes in a week, we'll work in 4 different locations. So we're roving. We, as a corporation, I will say this, that we do have lean staffing levels. Our reviews this past year in 2022 have confirmed that we do have very lean staffing levels across the organization, and all the staff are working hard to modernize their business processes and manage the day-to-day workloads, and they take on more initiatives. So I'm very proud of the work done in amongst all those challenges. In terms of opportunities, of course, there's many across the organization that you'll hear today and at our next meeting when the staff present their business plans and their budgets. And just to mention, of course, the modernization of our facilities. It will have a very positive impact on the county administration operations and our service to the public. The refresh of the strategic plan and the funding in your council budget includes the refresh of the strategic plan. It's not all orientation, but it does include your refresh of the strategic plan. That is a really important project so that we can understand the new council's vision and we can build our budgets over the term to support the projects and services that you identify as being major initiatives that we should undertake. So the opportunities as well as the challenges, even though the ongoing construction is a challenge, it is something that's way overdue and will make a real difference for people who work in that building and who frequent that building for business. 5 Huron and the connecting link is going to be a face for the county. When I started at the county a few years ago and I come in the back door of the courthouse, there was not one indication anywhere in that building that this was the home of Perth County administration. And so now the public will recognize that when they come in. And as I indicated before, we're going to refresh the strategic plan. That's going to be great. 23 major initiatives, corporate policy review and development. We're doing some term planning. We have some significant agreement renewals during the term of this particular council, and that's going to require some preparation activities and a heavy workload for several of our departments, public works, finance for sure, legal, and myself. Again, major initiatives, strategic plan refresh. We hope to have that finished by the end of June and in front of you. We are undertaking a terrific stewardship project. We're supporting that with our local municipalities. And we had a meeting on that yesterday. It was really good. And we will be bringing the consultant in to do a presentation to this particular council, as well as the local councils. Process reviews and process mapping, as we indicated before, that is part of our work plans. That's part of how we do our business. We're always reviewing our processes, always looking for better ways to do our services and our every day-to-day activities. Develop a framework for corporate resource planning and project management. So that's an internal project. It's about supporting a service strategy between the departments when we are planning out our priorities over the next year and the year after that and for the term, that we make sure that we have basically the horses to do the work, and that we prioritize those in accordance with council direction, legislation, the risks that some of those pose to the long-term viability of the corporation. So you will see some of that information come back over the year in terms of reporting. Next slide. The operational budget for the office of the CAO, and I just mean the CAO's division, not the other divisions that includes for planning, active, emergency management, and so on. Those will be brought forward to you individually by those divisions. For the CAO's office, it would just represent two individuals, myself and Sarah, our communications officer. So there's two FTE in there. It's a status quo funding to support a couple of us in those roles. Special project line includes $14,000, $12,000 of that 14 is a carryover from 2022 to support the work plan developed by the Affordable and Attainable Housing Committee. And that is a committee that actually we just talked about that yesterday with staff, that we'll have to bring that forward. It is a committee that is at the call of the chair, but with the change in council, you don't have a chair yet. We'll have to appoint one, so you can expect to see some activity in that regard in the near future. And of course, our strategic report priorities, our continued work towards the 5 key goals. So we would be involved in all 5 goals. Any questions?
Any questions of the report? I have one question, and not necessarily just to the CAO, but to all the departments as we go along. I don't know if I should do it now or at the end, but under professional development, some departments have a whole lot of money for professional development. Some have hardly any. And I'm just wondering if council should look at that and make it more consistent. As a council member, we're allowed X number of dollars, whether we're a counselor, a warden, or whatever we are. In the departments, I find that it's like, I'll use the one Lori just did it, professional development, they have $6,000. If I go to, say, finance, or $6,000 for 2 people. If I go to finance or 5 people, they have $5,200. So I'm just wondering if council should think about that as we go along. I know some of the things you take cost more money, but it's still, I find it kind of not fair. Councillor Smitowski?
That's a good point, Warden, but I'm just wondering sometimes if professional development sometimes is cyclical in nature. Like, I'm thinking every 2 or 3 years you have to renew certification or re-up for training. I don't know if the variance in the numbers is a cyclical thing, or as perhaps you're suggesting, there needs to be a minimum floor for all departments for their training and development.
Okay, Lori?
So through the warden, it's an important topic. I'll be bringing you back a report on corporate professional development, so you can see where corporately we've spent that money. There also is a corporate professional development fund in the human resources department. The individual budgets are developed and money is requested based on the managers looking at the needs of their particular department. It's generally not an amount of money that you would allocate to staff to say, here's a block amount of money without having a need for that money. So the idea is you look at the needs of what your programs are that year, what you have on your plate, what you need to accomplish. And then you look at the staffing complement that you have and say, first of all, do some require tickets, but do they have the skill set to actually do the work? And then there's some courses that we might, and I can think of one myself that I would take because I can actually do one of the objectives in my work plan throughout that 4-month course. So I'm getting the work done through the course and having the support of an academic professor to be able to help with that. So certainly at any time when managers are looking at the budgets, wanting to request more development money, all they have to do is ask for that, to say, I need additional money in order to accomplish these programs. And then we would consider that. I think it's just been a history here that we've carried over the same amounts. I can tell you in the CAO's budget, all that funding is allocated to certain courses. It's not just, I have 6,000, I might use it over here, I might do this with it. There's a strategy for using those funds. And I'm happy to bring that report back.
Okay, Councillor Kassenberg.
Thank you. And I trust that in that context, Ms. Wolf, we look forward to seeing that report, and that in that report, there's some recognition of how that is being tied up into performance management procedures within the organization for staff, because certainly identifying training gaps and how you're going to close those is a good practice in annual reviews and periodic reviews of employees. I guess my question actually sort of extends from what we've been talking about, and that's with regards to councillor pool for funds related to events and activities that we attend for training purposes. These days, it's not very hard to hit the councillor threshold with just the 2 meetings that most of us would be welcome at and should consider attending, Roma and AMO. Pretty easy to blow past the allocated budget that is in place, let alone any other training obligations or expectations or good ideas that we may have to strengthen our own roles as councillors and in the county system. So I also encourage a little bit of thought given to the rising costs of attending AMO and Roma and what that might mean for the training budgets for each member of council.
Okay, Councillor Aitchison.
Todd's got a valid point, but I'm just going to make another one. You know, your AMO, Roma, you might go to OSIM, you might go to a couple, 3 different things. You also have a lower tier budget that you can attribute some of that cost to. It doesn't have to all be at the county level.
Okay, anyone else? No? Okay, then we'll move on to the next budget, and that's human resources. Is Marion with us? Okay, we will move on, and Marion is going to join us in a little while. So the next budget then is economic development. Meredith?
Good morning, Councillor Warden Eggets and members of council. As you know, I'm Meredith Fredette. I'm your manager of economic development and tourism here at the county, and I have 2 of our teammates here. I have Ashley Lansing, our tourism officer, and Justin Diaz, our economic development officer. Unable to attend today's meeting is our transit coordinator, Maggie Kerr, and our digital service squad members, Aileen and Ricky. In 2019, the International Economic Development Council developed a short 3-minute video celebrating the many different activities that encompass economic development. I'd like to quickly share that video with you today. So
If you've ever noticed a new business opening in the neighborhood and felt a little proud of your community,
that's economic development.
that's economic development.
That's economic development.
If you've ever thought about retraining or upgrading your skills at a local college,
That's economic development.
If you've ever had to look for a new job and felt confident that you won't need to move, that's economic development. I want to let you in on a little secret. Economic development is at the heart of every great community because a strong economy doesn't just mean more jobs. It means more opportunities, more choices, more resiliency for everyone. So developing our economy really means developing our community. And dynamic, thriving communities don't happen by chance. It takes the efforts of skilled experts on the front lines working hard every day to make our community a little better. That's what we do. We are your economic development professionals. From local to national, our common objective is a stronger, more resilient, more inclusive economy. From new businesses to old industries, small towns to big cities, we understand what it takes to build a vibrant community, helping it grow stronger, where everyone has an opportunity to thrive.
how do we do it? Easy. With education and expertise, we collaborate to attract new businesses and work hard to champion for the ones we have, maybe even help them grow.
We can help navigate funding options, financing programs, and investment opportunities, and connect you with the right government resources. We know technology. We understand workforce development. We are experts in partnerships, mentorships, and apprenticeships.
We can work with councils to develop better strategies. We can work with schools to develop new training opportunities. We can work with community leaders to identify current gaps. And we love research. We can provide information on everything from local trends to international export regulations to implementing new technology to industrial cluster development. Yes, we know what that is. We do 1,000 different things, customized to the unique needs of our community, based on mountains of research and training and best practices. Because developing our economy is a science, and it is an art. This is how successful communities invest in the future.
In sustainability, in opportunity, in resiliency, in ourselves.
Which means creating a better place to live with purpose. A dynamic, thriving community for all of us. We are here for you so we can build a stronger community together. Let's get to work. Let's get to work.
Let's get to work.
You want to kick it off at slide 3?
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. So I'd like to take some time to celebrate our 2022 wins in our division. We developed and distributed 110,000 Discover More Tourism brochures and 30,000 Discover More farm gate maps across the province. We developed 8 new signature experience events through our award-winning Discover More Adventures. We hosted 5 media trips from Ontario travel content creators and influencers. We hosted a Yes in My Backyard session for 41 community members, provided 15 local tourism businesses with professional photography packages through our snapshot program. We developed 3 newsletters and 6 e-blasts, created a business resource toolkit that we mailed out through Canada Post to all businesses across Perth County. Participated in 113 meetings with investors who identified they were interested in expanding to Ontario. We completed a targeted 3-phase email campaign to over 2,000 contacts as part of our lead nurturing program. We hosted a succession planning workshop, continue to offer welcoming communities training for our businesses. We conducted 94 business consultations, delivering various digital service squad services, including digital assessment, Google My Business, and 360 photos. We developed a PC Connect for Employers campaign. This included a toolkit to promote PC Connect to reduce barriers for both employees and employers. Provided over 7,000 rides on PC Connect. We sold over 1,600 prepaid fares to local organizations and employers for PC Connect. We designed and executed multiple media campaigns promoting PC Connect transit system to all residents and visitors. And we launched PC Connect on Google Maps. We've had a pretty good year. I would be lax of me, not to mention the award we won this fall at the Tourism Association of Ontario Annual General Conference. The Ontario Resiliency Awards are given out annually and designed to celebrate the excellence in tourism happening across the province. Perth County was selected as a finalist for innovation along Destination Toronto and Ottawa Tourism, and we won. And this program was designed and executed by Ashley. So well done, Ashley. We can move to slide 4. So what do we have planned in 2023? Obviously pending council's approval. We'd like to hire a consultant to develop an economic development tourism strategic plan with 5-year implementation and action items. This updated framework will guide the direction and activities of economic development and tourism post-COVID and help us understand emerging opportunities and priorities. We're going to continue to build our business retention and expansion program with business outreach and restart business tours that were postponed due to the pandemic. We're going to continue to grow and enhance our experiential tourism program. We're going to continue to grow our Discover More Flavors Farm Gate. I always get tongue-tied on this one. Discover More Flavor Farm Gate Map program, including enhanced signage, marketing, and digital programming. We're going to continue to build our PC Connect ridership through sustainable marketing efforts. We're going to continue to build strategic partnerships with community groups, social services, and business to provide a cost-effective option for their members, clients, and employees to generate ongoing predictable ridership. We're going to grow our online presence through engaging in consistent content creation, content posting, and audience engagement on our Perth County Tourism social media accounts. This is done through reels, stories, guide blog posts, digital influencer partnerships, and online growth strategies. We're going to launch our workforce attraction and retention employer toolkit. This toolkit is a resource that businesses can access to view best practices and tools supporting recruitment, employee retention, employee engagement, flexible job design, and employee housing initiatives. This resource will be on an easy-to-use platform and shared as a reference and instructional guide for businesses across the province to access and use. We do have slightly minor changes in our service delivery in 2023. We've temporarily put our Snapshot program on hold, and we've scaled back our Discover More Adventures and our business retention and workforce programming to accommodate the development of our economic development strategic plan. Slide 5. Economic development, tourism, and transportation fall under all 5 goals of Perth County. We encourage positive growth. We provide flexible and affordable transportation across the county. We effectively provide tourism and economic development transportation services on a regional basis. We have demonstrated and embraced service excellence for all, that is businesses, residents, and visitors. We promote Perth County as an attractive destination for all through our tourism and economic development programming, and we are consistently looking for programming that is sustainable and relevant to Perth County. Next slide. So this is my presentation today. I wanted to end with a Helen Keller quote: "Is alone we can do so little, until together we can do so much." Thank you.
Okay, question? Councilor Smith?
Thanks to the warden. Thanks for the presentation there, Meredith. You mentioned you had meetings with over 100 investors, 113. What was there any results of that? I don't know, maybe it's ongoing, could be a couple of years, but any results from those meetings?
Yeah, so that is done through our partnership with our membership through the Southern Ontario Marketing Alliance. And we are currently working with 4 leads right now from those 113.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Councilor Cowan?
Yes.
Or Deputy Warden, sorry.
Through the warden, and thank you for your presentation and congratulations, Ashley. I'm looking at line item, I believe it's 5280, as Councillor Kaysenberg had indicated earlier. I believe that professional development is way too low. 2022 budget was 4,300. They spent 7,040. Budget 6,300, split between 1,500. Look what they're doing for our county, our community. I like to see that at 15,000 with the increase of expenses in that. And I'm going to not put you on the spot, but ask you your opinion on professional development, please.
Through you, Warden. Obviously, there's multiple opportunities for upgrading and staying current with marketing and promotional programs, business development and foreign direct investment training. We generally try and apply for funding to cover those, to offset those costs, because we do have quite a lean budget when it comes to professional development in particular. So obviously, there's lots of opportunities for us to take training and to improve and stay current. It wouldn't, it would be welcomed. But again, we do find opportunities to find funding to support that. Now, unfortunately, this year our revenues are down from granting programs. But hopefully something perhaps will change and some different training opportunities will come up where we can apply for funding for it, for training.
Supplemental. Give me one. So you think 6,300 is enough? Now's your chance.
I know, and I'm
Putting you on the spot though.
I will obviously, I can think of there's three training things that two for our economic development officer and one for our tourism officer that I would love to enroll them in, that we cannot afford at 6,300 right now. So that we have been talking about for 2024. But if this is something that council wants us to increase now, we can get our staff registered for those training programs.
Okay. I'd like to see that happen.
Okay, so do we need motion to do that? You have a question?
No,
first?
I would like to move that motion. There's no time like the present.
Okay, so Councillor Jankowski is moving that we move the professional development to 15,000. Is that what you're moving?
Yes.
Put words in your mouth. And a second by Deputy Warden Callum. Any more comments or questions? Councillor Geisenberg?
I'm certainly sympathetic to this change, but I think we should be systematic and look across all of the departmental budgets with regards to professional development. I understood from the comments earlier of CAO Wolf that she intended to bring some sort of report to council on this, and perhaps it's prudent to request that be brought with due haste so that we can evaluate this at our next council meeting, at which the budget discussions would continue.
Okay, anyone else comments or questions? We do have a motion on the floor that we increase it to 15,000. All in favor? Carried. Okay, anything else? For economic note, and once again, congratulations on the award, Ashley too. And Justin, thank you for all that you do in your department.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Okay, now we're going to go to human resources. Welcome, Marion.
Thank you. Hey, so. Sure.
Slides here.
Perfect. All right, through the warden. Thank you for having us today. So I just want to briefly touch on some of the 2022 accomplishments for HR. As you can see, it was a fairly busy year in terms of hiring. So we did 20 full-time hires, as well as contracts, our part-time paramedics, seasonal snowplow operators, and students. During the year, we launched several new programs. So the Employee Service Award program was launched. That was approved by council as well last year. And then this year, we'll be continuing to implement the program. We updated the Employee Code of Conduct, electronic surveillance policy, right to disconnect, and the corporate vaccination policy, both in union and non-union. Throughout the year, we provide regular HR metrics reporting. And then as well, we did employee engagement activities that included our holiday challenges, supporting local charity, specifically the House of Blessing, holiday meal provisions, and summer barbecue staff appreciation event. As we're starting to be able to come back and have group celebrations again. Health and safety is always prioritized at the county. Throughout the year, we did complete obviously all required inspections, but not only that, we go above and beyond. We complete regular safety audits. So we go out, we interact with staff, see if they're noticing any situations that are unsafe, and we act immediately to fix and correct any problems. We also provided in-house training on CPR. So we've already had 2 sessions, and as well, we're expanding that to the lower tiers should they wish to participate. So you'll be seeing those invites coming out again this year. We also did our situational awareness training. We ran 2 sessions, again, for both in-house staff, and then as well offered to lower tiers and Stratford and St. Mary's. So those are programs that we're looking at, aside from cost efficiencies, just promoting safety throughout the county. The other big accomplishment was the 2022 negotiations. So it was the freely signed agreement with our QP Local 4514. I think it's still quite notable as we're one of the few freely signed agreements this year coming out of COVID. So I would say an excellent relationship with both between management and the union, and it is a 4-year deal. The other large accomplishment was our leadership development program. And that's continuing on this year. So it's really working on our senior managers and working on skills such as communication, conflict management, actually a lot of just leadership skills that you would use on a daily basis. And then this year, the program is going to be expanded, as you'll see in the budget, to include the next level of managers as well and upcoming leaders. In terms of our opportunities and challenges, again, safety is always a top priority. Our negotiations for our Teamsters, so this is our small newest union, will commence likely late summer, fall 2023. We plan to include in our corporate training more initiatives around the diversity, and it's linking in with our charter as well. So we'll be working with Sarah to make sure that everything is aligned, but really focusing on inclusive hiring practices and how do we express inclusiveness and diversity in our day-to-day work. Again, as I mentioned before, the leadership development program will continue and will be sustained. We've received some really positive feedback on it thus far, but the main comment is a program's only as good as you sustain it. So we're going to have check-ins and continuation throughout the year. For our 2023, specifically our operating budget, there is no impact to the levy. There was a duplicate entry in the corporate professional development budget. So it showed an increase of 40,000. Tori will be speaking to it later, but that was an overinflated budget. So it should be the same at just around 43,000. HR division maintains consulting revenues. So that offsets the management salary of about 26.7%. So overall, there is a 0% cost, or sorry, 0% cost to the levy this year. We also had significant savings achieved in 2022 with legal fees. That's shown in the paramedic services legal budget. And that's because the negotiations were conducted in-house and we did not hire a lawyer to conduct the negotiations. Are there any questions before I move on?
Any questions? Oh, Corey?
I'm just going to add to the item in relation to professional development. It was one of those things, it was doubled in the corporate area. So we'll be reducing the corporate professional development by 42,000 within this budget. And there's a motion on the floor to add another 8,700 back into economic development. So it is overall still a reduction in our professional development within the current budget binder.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, thanks, Marion.
Perfect. And then lastly for 2023, and just because it has come up in terms of what's included in the corporate professional development budget. So we still have the leadership program continuing and it will be expanded and then as well include diversity and inclusion modules, executive coaching. And starting in April, we had previously used Harvard Mentor Manager available to staff. We'll be looking at instead of renewing the Harvard Mentor Manager program, we'll be looking to put the money into process enhancements. So working with consultants to redesign and edit our processes to make them more efficient for the county. And then additional coursework and the tuition reimbursement program. So we've allocated 5,000, and that's based on applicants from employees. And that program will actually be coming back to council later this year, just with more clarity around what does that program look like and how are we supporting our staff and making sure that we're seeing a return on investment from when we pay for someone's university courses, are they linked to their job and that type of thing. So that will be coming in March. Is there any other questions? Otherwise,
Councillor Aitchison.
Thanks, Marion. Great budget, great report. I got a quick question. I'm not going to ask now, but maybe when you bring back a report in March or wherever, we implemented a P4P program. I just would like maybe a bit of update on that.
sure.
Okay. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, to the warden. We've done a number of hiring last year. What would you find the best platform, how we advertise? And it's tough getting employees these days, and what do we find county is the best?
Yeah, so I'd say it all depends on the specific position. So we do tailor our recruitment practices depending on what's required. So for some higher level positions, like if just because Annette's here. So for the director of corporate and legal services, we went to Ontario courts. So it was specifically geared to to a legal authority. For any type of HR positions, there's specific community groups. So we reach out there. Our toughest hires still will be POA, so the Provincial Offences Office. We're not finding necessarily the candidates at this point in time that we're just sort of looking for that would fulfill the qualifications of the role. So there are going to be some adaptations in terms of even just reaching out to individual colleges and universities coming through the pipe. But yeah, it's a tailored approach depending on.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? No, okay, see no questions.
Okay. Actually, I think that actually concludes the presentation. So.
Okay. We have no questions, and thanks, Marion.
Perfect, thank you.
We've been at this for an hour and a half. I think we're going to take a 5-minute break here, and then we'll come back at 10:35 and resume. Okay. Okay, we are now going to move on to our next department, and that's the planning department, and Sally's joining us. There she is. Good morning, Sally. Good to see you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Eggets, and good morning, Council. I'm going to bring you through a little tour of the planning budget. So I'm going to start with as the other departments have with 2022 accomplishments. So what do we do with our budget last year? And this slide has quite a bit of information on it, but it gives you a sense of sort of the volume of development review. And so the number of applications that we see, the breakdown of what types of applications. And then associated with development applications, of course, is property inquiries. And we estimate we have some rough counts on that in and around the 500 area. And then pre-consultations too. And we, I don't know if I can estimate those, but it's probably between 80 and 100. So that takes up quite a bit of staff time. And our large portion of our budget in planning is staff. So some of the additional work that we do in the development program, the review program, is this journey that we're on as a department to continually improve this program. And that's from a service to the public, our work with the lower tier staff at those offices, and also in streamlining the processes themselves. So the other portion of that is some of the final approvals we do on consents and subdivisions. One of the streamlining things that this council put in a few years ago now is delegated approval, and you can see the majority of consents go through that. Last year, something that we're really pleased about and happy to share is the procedure manual. It was sort of a key piece of our program when we went back to a single tier service model. And staff worked really hard on that with lower tier staff together to nail that down. If you haven't had a chance to check the manual at it, it tells you sort of every step along the way of a planning process and who does each step. We onboarded and mentored 4 new staff last year, and I think that's significant because that's half of our team. So that's pretty important work, and also quite a bit of time is put to that because mentoring new staff is just critical to our success as a whole, and to make sure that we're hitting those strategic targets of customer service and efficiency and best management practices as well. We're implementing a few specific things over the past year around formalized pre-consultations, a sort of a static meeting schedule of pre-consultations, circulation related to that. We also are pretty well implemented now in our early circulation program, where that's the public consultation, so that the public is getting things earlier in the process than they would have in the past. And that's really facilitating developers and planners to resolve things before we bring recommendations before the planning authority. And some of the group training that we did last year involved a communication specific shared program that we did with Huron County. MDS, minimum distance separation, we had a very targeted, intense training on that, specific to Perth County staff from OMAFRA staff. We worked with some legal consultants on training for staff on part law control, and we developed some internal guidance and resources around that, and on non-conforming uses as well. And then one of the things offered to us through our rural organization and was some research done by the University of Guelph in partnership with OMAFRA on on-farm diversified uses, and that was really beneficial to staff as well. So I'll maybe take an aside right now to talk about training and development, professional development for planners and for our planning clerk as well. Planners are required every year to put in 18 credits of professional learning in order to maintain our professional accreditation. And that roughly equates to 18 hours. Some things you don't get is not a 1-to-1 ratio, but so the planners sort of are already on a track within our professional organization, OPPI, to do professional development on an ongoing basis. And we have to log all those learning opportunities, and they're evaluated every year by the organization. And because of that, we receive a lot of opportunities that are free. A lot of webinars are offered by both Ontario Professional Planners Institute and the Canadian Institute for Planners. So we do get some really good training through those very affordable methods. And as I said before, like our team is our department, our program, being fairly new back into a single tier service model. We sort of describe ourselves as this is a maturing department, and maturing referring to both our skill sets, our procedures, everything. Some of the tools that we have available here in the county to streamline things. So our training really over the last year or so has focused on things that we need to learn together, because we all need to be doing them the same, and we need to be doing them. We need to be learning those same things together. So we have done a lot of group training. It's sort of an affordable way as well. And I do see us moving. I'm going to highlight for you some of the training we have lined up for this year too. But I do see us moving away from that, from an expenditure point of view, into some more specialized training for individuals. And those items we can find through OBPI as well sometimes, but they have a higher price ticket on them. And I have tried to accommodate at least 2 opportunities per year for staff, so that they can self-identify to me in their own professional development plans for the year, what kind of things they would like to specialize in. There's a lot of niche subject areas within planning that folks are identifying they have interest in. So we are going to start shifting into that as well. And for our clerk, the work that Michelle does is a very specialized, unique type of, it's a combination of land registry, law clerk, and planning. And there really isn't a course for that. She has learned it from colleagues in other, in law firms and through a network. And she also belongs to an organization of administrative professionals that offer her insights and conference opportunities. So there's really not a targeted set of courses for the work that Michelle does. And so it's a little harder to find opportunities for that sort of trifecta of subject matters. But we continue to look for those, and Michelle certainly has interest. So we also try to budget for those. And I think, I mean, we could review that a little more detail, but we do have all the things that I've just shared with you are encompassed in the budget that I'm presenting right now. So just before we leave the accomplishments page, some official plan progress that occurred in 2022. We did a vacant land inventory, and we coordinated a lot of data with building officials actually to go into the update for the comprehensive review. That was a large undertaking. The approval and launch of the natural environment consultation was certainly a big project for the year, and we're really happy that it's out there, it's happening. We're engaged in it on a really regular basis, Stephanie and myself. We have an RFP out. It's actually just closed for the ecologist that supports that natural environment consultation. And we did quite a bit of mapping last year as well. Once the text was much more formalized, we reviewed a lot of special and fringe areas just to ensure that it was jiving and aligning with the mapping that we had done a couple of years back. And we have actually worked with a local consultant to do MDS calculations for every livestock operation within 1.5 kilometers of the settlement, the service settlement boundaries, and the growth areas that are going to be proposed, so that we can really be clear and precise about the setbacks for those operations when we're doing our growth planning. So that was also a pretty big undertaking, and well worth the effort and cost. So we have text editing sort of wrapping up here, and we're going to be moving into committee work here shortly. So these are the things that we did throughout 2022. I've broken down the opportunities and challenges for 2023 into 4 categories. This is the work that we're planning to do this year. I've actually started out with the continued training subtopic. We recently did some agriculture and ag-related uses training, and we were coordinating that in-house. We put some planners into pig barns. We had them do a dairy farm tour, and we put them over to a poultry operation as well. Planners on our team are showing a real interest in learning about different structures and types of buildings that they're seeing in aerial photos largely and on their site visits, but they want to understand them better. And so we wanted them to have a firsthand experience with farmers, and we got some very willing local farmers here to help us with that training, and staff were excited and learned what it's like to shower in and shower out of a pig barn. So that was also interesting for them. And ag-related uses, livestock trucking, tractor dealerships, veterinary clinics, all those things. Like, it's important for them to go on the ground and have a conversation with each other about what they're seeing, what types of buildings and land uses are in those proposals that they see. So that was a big, very current piece of training that we've done already this year. We have a noise compatibility workshop coming up with Huron County. It's a sort of a high ticket item. We're sharing costs with them, and we're inviting building staff as well. Hydrogeological assessment, that's the short, or the nickname for that sort of is a nitrate study. Those are relevant when you have development proposed in a area where private servicing is predominant. And it's important that we understand those studies and when they should be included in a submission for a proposal, a development proposal, and what we're looking at when we receive them. So we've been working with a hydrogeologist to provide us with some training, as well as help us develop a terms of reference for staff, which applicants, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. We're working with a surveyor to offer some land registration documents and processes training for staff. And we also want to do some internal work in partnership with BM Ross to help develop staff skills in writing conditions for subdivision and consents. That's a very tricky piece of writing, and it comes with experience, and we want to sort of fast track everyone's abilities there. File tracking is the next subject or sub category of what we want to achieve. And we're working on certainly the Bill 23 changes, but I think the one here that relates most to budget is probably a software selection for file tracking. And so we're in the process of that now, doing a bit of investigating, and closer than we've been in a long time to getting something like this in place. And you'll find that in the IT software budget, but it is a major project of planning this year, and has a cost associated with it. So the last two subject areas for our work this coming year certainly is the official plan. Natural environment consultation continues. Work with our committees that review that document internally before we sort of release a draft publicly. That's about to commence here in about a month's time. And then the public consultation itself throughout the summer. So there are costs associated with certainly the natural environment consultation as the ecologists. And the committee review will have minimal costs because largely we'll use Zoom and staff time to develop materials. Public consultation will have some expenses related to some of the interesting applications or mapping applications and communication, digital communication things that we want to do. Maybe some animated shorts. We're really looking at some possibilities there. So there'll be some expenses there to make the consultation interactive and interesting for people. I think one of the things I wanted to point out about this that's important is we get a ton of support from GIS and communications to do this work. And we've been reliant on them, and it gets more so as we get closer and closer to public consultation. So that's been an excellent foundation for this work to be progressing. And one of our challenges in this area is we're really reliant on the development staff to keep things rolling while we do this work. And because the development stuff's on a statutory timeline, so it does have to be an incredible priority. So, and in times when that workload is high or we're short people, that takes time away from the OP. So we do try to be incredibly balanced, and it's difficult at times. So another thing that's made this very successful over the last year is the relationships that we're building within the agriculture community to help us with that natural environment consultation. stormwater protection, not stormwater, source water protection officials for those municipal wellheads. MMAH, we've had some really great conversations with them over the past year, and that's going to need to continue. Conservation authorities and our two consultants, Watson and WSP. So those relationships are really important to the success for this sub area of our work. And policy development. So there are some expenses here this year, targeted expenses. Hydrogeological, I just mentioned in the last couple of slides. We're really looking to not only train staff, but develop an internal policy here so that we can offer applicants a more streamlined approach. We want them to, when we pre-consult with someone and we say, you're going to need to evaluate nitrates here because you're proposing septics near other people's drinking water wells. We want them to be able to receive a document from us that is like a very clear homework assignment that lays out what they need to do and how to do it. So we're looking to have a consultant, a hydrogeological engineer, help us with that. And we've budgeted for that. Similarly, an archaeological master plan, there's money in the budget for that. If I could describe that, it would be that an archaeologist would gather all the pertinent information that's available to tell us more clearly what archaeological what potential there is in certain areas of this county. And it will really help us to screen applications and potentially facilitate us exempting more applications from this. So that I think is an important investment too in streamlining planning applications for developers. And then the lower tiers have asked us for wind turbine policy. And so there's some money in the budget for that as well. The highlights of our operational budget and planning, a climate change coordinator for the county will reside in our team. And so the salary and associated benefits for that person have added to our budget expenses for about 90K. Other salaries and benefits, that's sort of COLA and the extension of the a short extension for the official planner. About 33. I put in a little extra money in the legal budget this year. We do have a hearing scheduled for this year, and just based on some advice from our council around how the OLT is now dealing with costs, awarding costs, and also just the juxtaposition of the developer actually being on the opposite side of the table from us on this one. I thought it would be prudent to have a bit of a fund in here to cover costs that we might incur and not be able to recuperate. And so that's a bit of a contingency. And then our interdepartmental overhead shifted up about 10K. It's balanced out a little bit by some of the decreases in our budget this year. We have a lot of things accomplished now on the OP, and so they've largely been paid out. So there was a high cost last year for the postage on the natural environment consultation. The consultant WSP is mostly paid out. That's paid on sort of just a regular basis in chunks. And then Watson doing the comprehensive review update, they are also paid out in chunks as they accomplish set milestones along the way to that document. And they're mostly paid out as well. So that occurred in 2022, which reduces our budget expenditures for this coming year. Also, a major shift in our budget this year is that we're becoming a very robust department, and we don't need to rely on outside help to manage workload as much as we have in the past couple of years. And we're shifting, therefore, from expenses of that nature into consultants, as I mentioned, to help us with those three sort of internal policy pieces, the wind, the archaeological, and the hydrogeological. Our strategic priorities, sorry, the sun's just coming in on my face here now. The strategic priorities for the county, we certainly align with the community growth and development piece. The new OP is a key part of that. File tracking, the continued process improvement, the streamlining, help us with regionalized service efficiency. And we're always like tuning into cues, feedback, on customer service. And that includes not only applicants, but our partners at the lower tiers as well, and certainly the planning authorities that we advise. So that concludes my slides. I'll just stop sharing so I can see you and take any questions that you have.
Okay, questions for Sally? Councilor McDermott?
Yes, the hydrological study, that's just on when you're doing a development. That's not on an individual doing a house or something. That's if you're doing like a subdivision or something.
No, subdivisions are largely on municipal services, so we don't need a hydrogeological assessment on that because there's no septic systems involved. So a hydrogeological study looks at the soil. It evaluates soil to a fair depth and also its proximity to groundwater, or the vulnerability of the groundwater in that very specific location. And it also evaluates the location and condition of drinking water wells in the vicinity that are privately owned. So whether they're dug or drilled, whether they're up or downhill, what is the soil conditions between the septic system that's proposed and those. So you see this coming up more in hamlet and village type scenarios where, you know, one lot or an infill lot or like for lot creation in villages and hamlets, it's important that this is evaluated. And what it does is it measures the amount of nitrate effluent coming off or potentially coming off. It's a theoretical model coming off of the septic system from the new development, and how dilute it therefore becomes at the lot line. And there are provincial standards for that. So that has to be under a certain number of parts per billion of nitrates at that lot line. And it all works back to soil type and lot size. And so those studies really help people figure out what's an appropriate lot size in this soil type. And it's really aimed at protecting drinking water for people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith?
Thanks, through the warden. Sally, on the actual budget, line 6160, in 2022, there was 130,000 there for the county official plan expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And you only spent 7. And now it's for this year requesting 30,000. Can you give it, and there's no notes there. Can you give us a little breakdown on what transpired there on that line, or what's going to happen?
The 100,000, I don't have that in front of me, but 100,000 is for the ecologist. So it got moved forward to this year. I put that in last year's budget in anticipation that I would have council approval in February to start the natural environment consultation. And we did that toward the end of August. So we didn't spend that $100,000 in 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Aitchison?
Yeah, I'm kind of slightly confused. I want to go back to Councilor McDermott's question about the hydrological, soil testing, et cetera, et cetera. So I put a new septic system in last year. And the first thing we did was we did soil tests. And they were, verified. And before we could even apply for a permit, and this wasn't through the planning department or it was through our chief building official. We did the soil test, and he even watched us take the soil test. And then we got permission, and then they designed the system based on the soil test. And I kind of fail to see why we need this. If that's all part of the process to get your permit to put in a septic tank.
So what you're describing is how to determine the appropriate size of the weeping bed.
But that's all part of the septic system.
Yeah, and what I'm talking about is lot size. So what is the nitrate concentration in water, in groundwater at your lot line? So if you're putting in a septic system on a farm, this doesn't come up because there's not, like, someone else's well isn't likely is not likely in close proximity to the septic system that you're putting in. And this isn't about, like the trigger for this is not the septic system itself, it's the lot creation. So it's about determining the appropriate size of lots in an area where there are a number of drinking water wells in close proximity. And it's about evaluating that nitrate level at the lot line. So the province's approach to this is dilution. Dilution being the solution. So your septic system functioning at a high level, functioning perfectly, has effluent, and that effluent contains nitrates, and nitrates are very dangerous in drinking water. So the objective here is to make sure that on a particular soil type and in certain groundwater conditions are considered, so that we know what an appropriate lot size would be in order to ensure as best we can that when that effluent hits your lot line, it's less than 10 parts per billion.
Okay,
We'll live with that.
all right, other questions? Nope, seeing no more. Oh, Councillor Trentowski.
So, through you, Warden, so if I understand it correctly, Sally, the chief building official looks at the design and function of, and the function of the septic system, but the hydrogeological assessment closes the loop by understanding the relationship between the performance of the system and the proximity of the groundwater, and the fluctuation in the ground, potential fluctuation of the groundwater in the water table, to ensure that Ontario provincial standards are conformed to. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I could offer one sort of nuanced change to what you've said. You were really, really close on it. So it's assuming that the septic system is, I mean, I think there's a factor in there for it not functioning well, but when it's functioning properly, there is a migration of nitrates through the soil, and the vehicle is water. And so what's important is that there is enough space between the effluent coming out of a septic tank and the neighboring and the lot line, so that it is filtered, like the nitrates filtered out of that groundwater as it moves through your soil. And that's laterally and also down to ground, to other aquifers as well. So it's a function of the soil type and the groundwater conditions most common in that area. Those two things are going to affect how effluent travels laterally, in particular, in a particular area. And last year, I think we required this a handful of times. I can think of one example where somebody wanted to create an undersized lot in a village. And we did go through this study, and the lot size was not adequate in order to protect the drilled well next door and the dug well across the way. And so a tertiary system was recommended. It's sort of a specialized septic system. And that's when we go back to the building official and make sure everyone's in agreement that the tertiary system is going to be accepted on the lot. And that's how we evaluated that consent application. Because it wasn't going to be a sufficient lot size, and we had to look for an alternate solution, which became that specialized septic system. And then we went to building, because that type of system requires specialized annual monitoring by the building official. So it's a real cooperative exercise.
Thank you, Sally.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Aitchison?
One more quick one. So 2 years ago, I guess now, we started the new planning model. And one of the big discussions we had was cost recovery. So, and I know it's come a long ways. And I know we're going to have a meeting with all the lower tiers, et cetera, with the planning for its review coming up. But I looked at the increase cost of the levy here. Is the fee something we should take another look at?
Yeah, through you, Warden. fees review is on our radar for this year. With the target being an update to the fees bylaw in the fourth quarter. And with the we need to review the fees because we looked at the top 5 planning application types when we set up the new single tier service model. We need to circle back and look at some of the things like final review on a subdivision. And now there's also new costs that we need to arrive at a fee for things like reinstatement of the subdivision or that have come through legislative changes. So yeah, a fees review is definitely due, and it'll be really important to get done this year.
Okay, other questions? Oh, see no more questions. Thanks, Sally.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You as well.
Okay, now we're going to move to emergency management. And I believe we have Rick with us this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me today to present this report. We're going to start off with some accomplishments from 2022 or 2022. First things first, provincial compliance. Every year we're required to submit some compliance to the province of Ontario. That was done late 2022. It's expected to go through without issue. We typically don't hear back until mid to late February. That's the process. They've got a lot of review to do. Another was the countywide emergency tabletop exercises, which are another component of the provincial compliance. There are a lot to accomplish. There are a lot to knock out. So that's a significant accomplishment. And then the training that was done. Training is a big component of this portfolio, making sure the municipal emergency control groups are up to speed. So a lot of the training that was done was in emergency operations centers, incident command and or management training, the elected officials training, and then emergency EMC course, which was also done throughout this year. One of our partnerships with the University of Toronto Elite Engineering Program helped us with the HIRA. This is really a third-party review of our HIRA, another set of eyes, which is a good program to work with. They also helped infrastructure, which is another requirement of provincial compliance. That's something that's reviewed annually. And that's another part they helped us out with. And then, of course, the updating of bylaws to reflect for memberships of groups, myself, etc. So that's some of the accomplishments. Slide, Sean. One of the other accomplishments I'd like to point out, because there was a lot of coordination on a lot of work, a lot of good people did a lot of good work during this event. So it is an accomplishment unto itself. Was the storm of the end of 2022. It was the largest storm on record since 1977. Most impactful since that time. So it's a significant event. It impacted all of our roads, provincially, municipally, across the county. It's not uncommon to close roads in various locations throughout the county. It's happened earlier in 2022. This included all the roads. So that's a significant impact. So this was a lot of coordination between municipalities, a lot of our service partners and third-party entities, the OPP, Ontario 501, Emergency Management Ontario. I can tell you, like, we were in contact with the Lower Municipality alternate CMCs throughout this event. They did a lot of really good work here. So they were mostly impacted by this. They were establishing the overnight warming centers. They're staffing them, volunteers, their own staff, 24 hours housing people. So that was a really significant accomplishment from a municipal perspective. And of course, the alert ready message, which was difficult to get out, but required. But it's not something the province would typically do for this type of incident. So it was another accomplishment. They don't typically recognize these type of events because they don't typically occur. Again, 45 years since the last one. They don't have a winter blizzard on the criteria scale. So there was a lot of convincing when I was talking to the province throughout that sort of 2-hour period to get it launched out. There was a lot of convincing, a lot of arm bending to get that message out, and it was needed, and that was the point. So that was another significant accomplishment. So in all, there are some lessons learned out of this event, no doubt. Some things we're going to take forward and work on as the county and with the municipalities and our partners, but there were a lot of good things that happened out of this, and a lot of good people did a lot of really good work. So I just wanted to highlight that in this report. Next slide. 2023 opportunities. A big thing I'd like to focus on, or we'd like to focus on, is the public education piece. Getting out to the communities and letting them know what emergencies mean to them. Prime examples is the significant weather event. It's one thing for us to say, yes, we've initiated or declared a significant weather event, but what does the community need to know? What is it? How does it impact them? What roads does it, what does it mean to roads? What does it mean to operations? What does it mean to them? So public education efforts is something we're going to be looking at. Continuing training development of the municipal emergency control groups, both at the county and the lower tier municipal levels. Things like continuity of operation training. Province of Ontario is releasing 2 new programs that we can look at. We can roll out internally without needing to go to external or trainers. We can deliver amongst ourselves. That's the continuity of operation training and the senior elected officials training. It's different than the one we did in December. The province is developed their own. I have yet to see it, so I can't speak to it yet, but they've developed their own. So in general, continuing on training for the groups, we need to make sure they're prepared to do so. We need to continue with that training. So there will be some efforts and some things there. Designing and outfitting emergency operations centers. It's one thing to say we have EOCs. It's another thing to say they're functionally ready to operate. This room is the county's EOC. Behind you are some closets with some information materials and stuff to make it operational and functional. We need to do that for the lower tiers as well. So that's one piece we're going to be working on. Development of a new ERP or emergency response plan for the county. There are a couple of ways of doing this. This was one piece that came out of the 2022, the modernization report that you guys would have seen. So that's one thing to look at, how we develop that plan, what it's going to look like, working with the municipalities to make that happen. A governance structure. A governance structure that makes the HIRA part of our day-to-day activities and makes the HIRA audit part of how we do business. It's one thing to say we've done a HIRA, we've assessed risk through the county, et cetera. It's have most places develop one and put it on the side of the desk and look at it annually, and that's it. It doesn't develop a part of a work plan, which is a problem because people aren't continuing to look at it. They're not continuing to use it for planning, for development, and for various other opportunities. So looking to develop a HIRA governance model, and then assessing the recommendations from the modernization report. What are we going to do? The reports come in. There's a lot of information in that report. As a sort of emergency management program, holistically throughout the county, what are we going to implement? What is it going to look like? And how are we going to move forward as a group and as a team? So that's something we're going to look at as well. And then, researching things like climate change and the impact on the environment and climate change as it relates to the HIRA. Climate change is something that's not generally recognized in most HIRAs because people are just burying their heads in the sand with regards to climate change. But looking at that climate change aspect and seeing how it impacts the HIRA. Next slide. Many of the activities in the budget from emergency management is a sort of 0% increase. For the most part, anything that's done is going to be done as budgeted. There may be some costs to lower tier municipalities for some of the training initiatives, but we don't know that yet. Some of the stuff we're going to be looking at is free of cost from the province. We're going to look at those opportunities and seeing how we can make those happen for all of the members. But I mean, things like crisis communications training, the province does not offer that. We may have to look at that externally, but I'm already looking at different vendors and different providers that are more cost effective than ones that we've looked at in the past. So we don't know that cost yet. We don't know how it's going to roll out, but we'll do that and we'll work together as a team, develop a plan. Right now, things like crisis communications training is forecasted up to Q3. So we've got some time to look into that to figure how, who, and how, and the costing with regards to that. Any cost we do, any increase will be done as fiscally as we possibly can. Strategic priorities. The emergency management portfolio hits all 5 of the strategic priorities. Growth and economic development. As our communities continue to grow, and we did see this during the significant weather event, a lot of people are moving to the counties, the municipalities. As our communities continue to grow, so does the program. We need to develop the program. We need to account for new people to the areas. So as we continue to grow and develop, our program needs to grow just as much. And we need to hit those people who don't really understand the county. Regionalization, service effectiveness, contributes to the countywide collaboration and interoperability. At the end of the day, we need to work together in the municipalities because it's not going to happen in one municipality. We've seen that from the significant weather event. It's going to affect all of us. So we need to work together for the regionalization and service effectiveness, customer service and excellence, ongoing engagement with the public. This is that public education piece I was spoken about earlier. We need to up that. We need to make sure people understand the threats, the hazards, the risks, and again, the impact to them. Community development and planning. We need to continue to develop and we need to look at planning with regards to emergency management. We need to assess current risks, assess new and emerging risks, and how those are going to affect things like the planning department, planning and develop, planning on communities, et cetera. So corporate sustainability, things like using the HIRA, I spoke to that earlier, making sure that HIRA is part of day-to-day work plans to help the sustainability aspect moving forward, making sure people are focusing on it when they're doing plans, when they're doing work plans with their staff. The planning department, for example, can use the HIRA and work and use it as a backbone for some of their projects. So I think we do hit all those strategic priorities. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Questions?
Fantastic.
No questions? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thanks, Rick. Okay, we're going to move now to corporate services. And the first one is legislative services. Annette? No,
I'll be doing that.
you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll just get Sean to put that up there. Great. Excellent. So through the warden to council, good morning, everybody. This is the legislative services portion of the operating budget. Sean, if you could go to slide 2, that'd be great. Perfect. So just some of the accomplishments in 2022, we completed several program documents and standard operating procedures. The foundational work for the multi-year joint accessibility plan was also completed in 2022. And we're going to be bringing this forward to council probably within the first quarter here to get that passed. Next slide. So some of the accomplishments listed here are the grant program. So this included a defined communication strategy that was done in collaborations with our communications officer. We saw an increase in our grant applications. And again, we'll be bringing a report back at the February 16th meeting to highlight those applications and for council decision. We established this new grant program and that also included the policy with it. Now, records management was a large focus in 2022 as we established a modern comprehensive program. And you're going to see this kind of bleed throughout the rest of our presentation today, as well as some of our work as we move forward in 2023. We have undergone the digitization of all agendas, minutes, and bylaws dating back to 2012 to current. And so that's all been scanned into our system and will be made available to the public this year with the help of technology services assisting with us. Slide. Perfect. So some of the opportunities and challenges with respect to records management, we have a decreasing physical record storage space, which actually is paired up really well with our campus changes. So it's actually an opportunity and a challenge. We are working with all divisions across the corporation to ensure that we can decrease their physical footprint of physical records while increasing their digital footprint of their digital records. So this is being done in collaboration or coordination with the new campus changes. And we will be working with communications to do a strategy and our plan as well for a complete audit for accessibility and transparency with our content as well. Now, some of the challenges that we have, as previously mentioned, with the ongoing construction, it is difficult, and Lori alluded to this earlier on, with having some individuals that are in their office and not in their office and records being moved around a little bit. So that is a bit of a challenge that we're working with. And luckily, everybody has been very compliant with the program that we put in place. Next slide, Sean. So to highlight in the operating budget we do have for staffing, we have noted a 0.5 FTE to be combined with our existing 0.5 FTE, which is our front desk reception. This position would oversee central reception duties and would assume the administration function of the records management program that is being rolled out. Over the past year, we were very fortunate enough to receive grant funding for a full-time employee. That was Phil O'Donnell to initiate the implementation of the project. And Phil's contract expires at the end of this month in relation to that grant funding. Additionally, we have listed under special projects $2,000. This has been
kind of an annual thing that has been put into our budget with respect to records management program for continuation of additional supplies as we move and try to figure out what the scope of our records that we have. Slide. So with respect to strategic priorities, we listed and highlighted 2 of them. Goal 2 is the digitization of records. This increases better day-to-day efficiency for all staff throughout the corporation, as well as increased access for the public. So again, trying to highlight that transparency and accessibility portion. The accessibility plan is necessary and is completed with the assistance from all our lower tier municipalities, and that's inclusive of public engagement, which actually just wrapped up 3 or 4 days ago. Goal 3, we have increasing public access, again, for transparency and accessibility through the use of our file hold software. So we've had this software for a couple of years, and we've really been building this large repository of information for the public to access certain aspects, as well as internally for day-to-day efficiencies. Highlighting again on the campus and the construction related to that, we really do want to focus this year on customer service initiatives as we move through some of these changes, so that way we don't have any disruptions to any of our services at the courthouse during that construction, and making sure that information gets out to the public, again, using communications. So that's all I have for the legislative services portion, and I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Questions of the report? No questions, okay. Then will we move on to finance?
Thanks, Warren Eggetts, and thank you, Council. Finance, as Sean brings up the slides.
Yeah. Okay.
Finance overall is a supporting division through this organization. Next slide, 2022 accomplishments. We are in our accomplishments. We are seeing additional financial reporting within the provincial funding that we've essentially obtained. One of the areas is within modernization. One of our biggest accomplishments for 2022 was the completion of an updated asset management plan in compliance with the OREG 58817. And this was in conjunction significantly with Public Works. Another area of accomplishment was we obtained financing for courthouse elevator. With the ever increasing interest rates, it was nice to upfront that debenture cost with a lower interest rate than what we're currently seeing today. And again, our accomplishment is to continue to provide excellent service to support the organization in making timely and important decisions. Next slide, Sean. Some of the opportunities within 2023 and challenges, again, is develop financial policies to assist council and staff. One of those areas is a refresh of our county procurement policy. And as indicated through Councillor Aitchison, is a review of the fees and charges bylaw, as well as an introduction of a new reserve policy. Again, another opportunity is, again, continue to the citizen education in relation to communicating citizens and understanding a 2-level government, municipal and the local government with the upper tier. And we'll be doing a review of our financial services, particularly audit and insurance services in 2023. Next slide, Sean. Increases in 2023, it is a 22.2% increase over our highlighted expenses, significantly in salaries. This is an additional add of a resource request of a financial payable and receivable clerk to assist and support the other divisions. It will also be included as part of the records management program as we move into that program and the additional assistance that it requires. There are other adjustments within the budgets, and we utilize finance utilizes a 5-year average within the 3-year operating. Next slide, Sean. Strategic priorities. As mentioned, regionalization and service effectiveness is continued response to additional reporting brought on by the pandemic. One of those areas is significantly within paramedic services and the new community paramedicine program and the reporting required for that. And under corporate sustainability is our next goal is developing a financial strategy in relation to our asset management plan, maintaining good financial stewardship of the county through long-term financial planning. And with the customer service excellence, is that education piece of a two-tiered structure and the overall municipal governance with a two-tier structure. Next slide, Sean. That is all I have. And if I take any questions, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay, questions? No questions. Okay, then we will move on to IT, and Steve is going to join us on the screen. Morning, Steve, and welcome, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, Warden and members of council. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. So the Technology Services Division, which includes both IT and GIS sections, provides comprehensive technology solutions that are used across the corporation each and every day to support and enable county staff to deliver efficient and cost-effective municipal services and improve the management of information and make it accessible to county council, county departments, and to our residents. So technology and the information services we provide to the organization are considered a foundation, linked in some way with every program and service provided by the county. So notable accomplishments in 2022 include the following. The organization partnered with the Perry Group Consulting to develop an IT and GIS strategic plan that lays the groundwork to help focus and guide the current and future direction of the division, enabling the organization to react and embrace new technologies as they become available and to deliver improved and more cost-effective services. Although the project was to develop a strategic plan specifically for IT and GIS, it was considered critical to the entire organization and approached as a corporate initiative with full staff and senior management support and input. IT introduced new systems and services to boost the organization's cybersecurity defenses as the number of municipalities targeted for attacks continued to rise. Some of the services deployed or enhanced included new email and web filtering, remote user access authentication, mobile device management, and cybersecurity awareness training for all staff. To accommodate the latest changes in provincial offenses court appearance requirements, IT worked with POA staff to develop a new hybrid courtroom setup that enables court attendees to choose how they will attend hearings, either virtually or in person. IT also completed a hardware and software upgrade of the backup and recovery system, which brought additional reliability and stability, and introduced an offsite backup component, improving our overall data recovery redundancy options. GIS worked with planning staff to develop new tools and data sets in support of the new official plan project. Work included producing mailing lists, web applications, and map books as part of the natural environment review process. Developing internal web applications for planning staff to review official plan designations, amendments, and site-specific changes. And building proposed official plan designation data sets and accompanying documentation. GIS continued to develop, update, and test new road network, intersection, and civic address data sets as part of the larger Canada-wide project to update the 911 system to next generation 911, aimed at improving public emergency communications in a growing wireless mobile world. GIS also partnered with communication staff to develop a new, easy-to-use road story web map application for the public that provides valuable information and education about the roads in Perth County and their conditions, as well as simple steps to report road issues to the proper agencies. Some of the opportunities and challenges for the division include the IT and GIS strategic plan identified the need to establish an effective IT governance practice as an opportunity for the division. The aim is to begin work with senior leadership to develop a more formal framework for setting the county's technology priorities, overseeing the delivery of the technology program, and resolving conflicts and challenges. In addition, the strategic plan confirmed that there was high expectations across the organization for leveraging technology and digital services to improve business and service delivery. So we want to focus on identifying those services and processes where there may be opportunities for improvement through digital transformations. In 2022, supported by recommendations from the IT and GIS strategic plan, the division added one additional IT staff position. This will help address the backlog and demand for IT services built up in the organization, but still finds us below the minimum level of IT staff recommended in the strategic plan and may present some challenges meeting demand for services in the future. Although hybrid and remote work are now commonplace, they still present technical support challenges for staff as well. The good news is that the industry is evolving to provide new tools and applications meant to ensure a seamless work environment for staff no matter where they are working. We will continue to review and improve where possible our remote access technologies in an effort to minimize issues and make the experience as smooth as possible for staff. So looking at the operating budget in 2022, as recommended by the IT and GIS strategic plan, 2 new staff were added to the division. The IT support technician to the IT section and the GIS technician to the GIS section. 2023 will be the first full year of salaries and related expenses for those positions, as well as a portion of the department director's salary, also new this year. New licensing costs include the first year of the Esri Regional Government Enterprise Agreement, which provides county and lower tier staff access to GIS software and educational resources that will be used to further develop the GIS service in the county, and additional endpoint security software to help reduce the risk of cyber attacks on our computers, mobile devices, and email system. Network and website support changes reflect our increased use of remote work and meeting technologies like Zoom, the introduction of new cybersecurity initiatives to ensure we maintain an effective level of protection for our network, and an increase for our corporate website maintenance hosted service that comes during the latest service agreement renewal cycle. A few of our key strategic priorities for 2023 include system upgrades. So we have several system upgrade projects on the work plan for 2023. Our current internal telephone system requires a full client and server software upgrade in order to benefit from new capabilities and to maintain full vendor support. Part of this project will involve the introduction of a new client application requiring training for all staff. The desktop and server system software that runs the GIS service, including web, database, and publishing environments, are all on older versions that are close to the end of vendor support. IT will work with GIS to set up new server systems and upgrade all GIS software to the most current versions in order to stay current with vendor support and improve system service offerings for all clients. These projects will ensure the systems to be upgraded are fully supported and maintained at current vendor levels and don't add additional costs to operate and maintain, and that staff are provided with the proper tools and systems to perform their duties and deliver the best service possible to all customers. Facilities construction projects, IT requirements. So we will be working with facilities to manage and oversee all of the IT-related building requirements for both the courthouse elevator and 5 Huron Street development projects. Responsibilities include the planning, design, and implementation of all data cabling and equipment spaces, audio-visual setups, telephone, Wi-Fi, building access, and video security systems, just to name a few. The goal is to design and implement spaces and systems that provide the technology and tools that will allow staff to deliver the most effective and efficient services now and into the future. That concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, questions of the report, Councillor Duncan?
Thank you, Warden. What I'm wondering is,
does our GIS have the ability to create a real-time snowplow tracking map for the public? I've had this request after the last snowstorm, if we had the ability to create a mapping system that would allow the general public to track our snowplows on our county routes.
So through you, Warden, those systems are absolutely possible. That would be something we would have to investigate because it would be a coordination with Public Works and with GIS and potentially the AVL vendor that Public Works would be working with at the time. So the AVL does have hardware that is in the trucks to record the activity of the trucks. So we would have to work with all three sort of sections to determine whether we have the capability with what we have in place to be able to provide that information, or if we would have to look at another third party to sort of come in and bring that all together. But that's something we could definitely look at. I've seen it on other municipal websites and I understand, yes.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Aitchison?
This isn't necessarily a question for Steve, good report. This is maybe for Corey. But we don't always show an amortization expense on a lot of our departments. This one we show 160,000, which is a non-cash cost. Where's that 160,000 going? Reserve?
Yeah, through the warden, yes, that's correct. It's essentially generating the money we set aside to replace our computer equipment assets. And it's within the operational budget as this is one of those divisions that is corporate overhead and is distributed out to the other end services. So they are also picking up their components of the computer system requirements to replace their computer system assets.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Duncan?
Just wondering, does staff require a motion of council to investigate what I just brought forth there?
Through the warden, I would request that you do, given we are looking at workloads right now and our priorities. So I know, as Steve says, it's totally doable. We can look into it, but making sure we balance that particular assignment. If it's a large one, he'd be able to report back on that once they look at it. It's a lot of people involved in it.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to stop investigate that.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Deputy Warden Kellum. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, Good Roads. Last April, I believe it was Good Roads. There was a couple of presentations or in regards to that. So there are companies out there, obviously there'll be a cost, but yeah, I'd be in support of investigating it.
Okay, anyone else? All in favor? Carried. Okay, any other questions for Steve? Seeing no questions, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, we're going to now move to the Court Services Division. I believe Linda will be joining us.
That's good. That's good.
Oh, sorry, Annette's going to do this. So Annette.
All right, good morning. As you know, we are looking to hire a manager of POA, and we brought back Ms. Becker on contract, and unfortunately she has broken her wrist. So I am here. So if we can to the first slide, Sean, please. So court services, this is just a brief overview to provide you with some background information. Court services runs the Provincial Offences Court. They are responsible for the charges, convictions, and enforcement. Fine revenue is distributed between St. Mary's, Stratford, and Perth County based on the location of the offense. And then from the county, it's distributed to the lower tiers based on weighted assessment. There's a variety of agreements that are in place, one with the Ministry of Attorney General as it relates to the administration of the courts. And then we have our agreements with the various municipalities. Next slide, please, Sean. So for accomplishments for 2022, it was obviously a challenging year with respect to staffing, but it was a busy year. It saw the resumption of in-person matters, and then the provincial reopening plan, which was a lifting of some of the requirements that were imposed as a result of the pandemic. hybrid court was set up, which allows people to attend in person or online or a combination of both. And the clerks assumed additional responsibilities as a result of legislative changes, which brought more work. Timelines were extended, which meant that work processes had to be adjusted. And software was updated. And we took on as many blitz dates as possible. And a blitz date is an additional court date that is not regularly scheduled that tries to deal with addressing the backlog. So again, that is more work for the division. Next slide, please. So in 2022, it was a successful year with $1.7 million in fine revenue collected. Approximately 60% of the charges for the fine revenue that was collected came from Highway Traffic Act offenses. You will recall from the report that was presented at last council for MSSC, the budget, that the number of charges is gradually increasing, but it's the court appearances that impact on the work for the division, because although charges are laid, it's now easier for people to challenge those charges rather than simply paying them, but rather say, I want to come to court. Next slide, please. So you'll see two graphs here. One, you'll see the charges that were filed. And it's difficult here to create a trend line because of the huge impact on 2022. But if we look at just the last 3 years, you'll see an approximate average increase of 16% for the number of charges that are being filed. For fines collected, again, here it's easier to do a trend line based on the last 5-year actuals, but you'll see it gradually increasing. Our next slide, please. So for court appearances, again, I mentioned that this is where we start to see more of an increase. So legislative changes have made it easier to challenge a ticket. And you'll see, as I mentioned, there's been more court appearances, increasing the average monthly caseload. And of note, POA has been operating with the same number of clerks, 3, since 2009, despite this continuous increase in the amount of work. So our next slide, please. So we had the retirement of our manager of POA, and that allowed us to come in and do an assessment of the workload. And looking at these various factors, the increase in the number of charges, the increase in the challenges to those charges, the additional responsibilities that were assumed by the clerks as a result of the legislative changes. We've got the pending download of these Part 3 offenses, which I can talk about a little bit more shortly. And then we've got a backlog. What we did to address that was we brought in an administrative assistant on a short-term contract, and we brought in a court reporter 1 day of the week to assist on Tuesdays for court day. And we actually requested in our budget originally to have the admin assistant made brought on full-time as additional staff and to continue with the contract for the court reporter. However, when we dug a little bit more deeply and we did a financial analysis, the difference between bringing on a full-time clerk who can assume those responsibilities versus continuing with these 2 other positions, the difference is really only $1,200. So our ask has slightly changed to say that we would prefer to bring on a full-time court clerk rather than the admin assistant and the continue with the court reporter coming in 1 day a week. Next slide, please. So for priorities for 2023, as I mentioned, we have this pending download of Part 3 matters. What does this mean? Part 3 matters are more serious criminal offenses, and court appearances are mandatory. So again, you'll recall that I mentioned the more court appearances, the more workload that is for our staff. Our municipal prosecutors are subcontracted by the Crown, and they have been for several years. And the Part 3 charges for that time has been paid for by the Crown. So unfortunately, once the prosecution of those charges is downloaded to the county, we will be responsible, and this will increase the department's expenses. So we also have on our radar the AMPS, an administrative penalty system. And the past year, we met with the Ministry of Transportation, we met with the Ministry of the Attorney General. We also met with KPMG because we wanted to really get a clear understanding of what the steps for implementation would be and the costs. KPMG wanted $50,000 to do that. And in the meantime, AMO was developing some guidelines for that. So we took a step back from pursuing that route. We waited for AMO to provide some guidelines and the province to provide some guidelines as well, which they did July, August. And now we're really, we're taking a measured approach and we are watching what other municipalities are doing because this is a large financial commitment. It is not a revenue generator. It is about safety, but it will be expensive to implement. And we want to make sure that if you choose to go this route, that we do it properly. So we are waiting to see what other municipalities are doing. At present, they're not doing a lot because there's a lot of confusion with regards to the requirements and the various agreements that we have to enter into. That is in our pipe. That is coming down the pipes. We are watching it. We are hoping to be fully staffed once we hire a manager of court services, but it is an ongoing project. So to conclude, it's been a very busy year. The POA team is very strong and really should be commended for their accomplishments. And our ask is to have another clerk. They've been operating with 3 clerks for the past 14 years, despite all of these increases and the increase in the demand for work. And I'm open to any questions that I can answer or take back.
Okay, questions of the report? No questions. Thanks, Annette. Thank you. Okay, and we will now move to archives. I believe Betty Jo will be joining us. Oops, he was there. Morning, Betty Jo.
Good morning, Warden. Good morning, Council. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me. Okay, so again, good morning, everyone, and thank you for your time. So for archives, 2022 was a year when we were celebrating our own 50-year history. The newly installed bench and sign in the Accessible Reflections Garden both were unveiled by Warden Aitchison and the Deputy Mayor for Stratford on the opening day of our Treasures of the Archives exhibit in the James Anderson Gallery. Archives staff also wrote 50 newspaper articles about these treasures from across the county, and they were published in Stratford, Listowel, and Mitchell newspapers. Our summer students digitized 3904 local newspapers last year. And so using feedback from the students this year, we've updated the detailed project manual for future students who will continue with converting all of our microfilms and printed newspapers to digital copies over the next few years. Other accomplishments last year included adding information about all local newspapers at the archives, no matter what format they were in, to public library catalogs across the county. And that work is ongoing as well, so that eventually we can link records in a library catalog to actual digitized copies of the papers. And staff have added more photographs to the Pioneers of Perth County collection on our website. So there are now nearly 4,000 images there linked with family trees that are available to the public 24 hours a day. And we clarified and documented our mutual obligations with our good friends and next door neighbor, the Stratford Perth Museum. In 2023, we will continue to provide reference and research services that support policy development and maintain corporate memory for 6 local governments. Information provided from the archives supports internal operations as well as responses to FOI requests. Archive staff preserve collections by maintaining optimal storage conditions and having an up-to-date disaster prevention and response plan. In 2023, we are going to evaluate collection growth patterns over the last 5 years to plan future storage needs and inform collection appraisal and development work. Essentially, we're going to be revisiting a lot of the analysis that we did before coming into the current building, which was a game changer for us. So we want to see what's been happening over the last few years so that we can inform decisions for the next few. Access to archives resources will continue to improve with the ongoing cataloging projects for records like Pounder Brothers Construction and City of Stratford records, and staff will digitize and catalog more collections to provide easier access for researchers and to keep original documents as safe as possible. To accomplish all of this, we are requesting an overall increase of 5.53% in our budget, which translates to around $41,000. And this change mainly reflects increases due to inflation to maintain current staff and service levels. And here you can see how Archives supports many of the county's strategic priorities. We support efficient and effective governance generally by providing timely access to historical records for municipal staff, elected officials, the public, and the media. And we support transparent and accountable government by capturing key evidence of local government decisions and activities and making all of that available to citizens. Thank you for your time today. I would, of course, through you, Warden Eggets, be happy to respond to any questions that council may have.
Okay, questions of the report? No questions. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, so that concludes what's on our agenda for the budget. I think we're going to stop there and to be honest, I didn't study any further on because I was stuck. It's on here. So if it's all right, we'll leave the rest until next week. There's other stuff to bring back to the grants and other things. So we do have a motion that the council receives the 2023 operating budget presentations, moved by Councillor Aitchison, second by Councillor Orr. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Do we have any council reports? Don't have any bylaws, notice of motions, other business, announcements. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, under other business, I guess, Rhonda, I have been asked, as most of you know or not, I've sat on the Western Ontario Ward's Economic Development Committee for the past 4 years, and I've been asked to sit on that committee again. I'm not sure. I just assumed after the election that there would be new people coming on, but I've been asked if I would go back on again. So not sure of the process. And talking to Rhonda and Laurie, probably should have, if that's your wish, to let me go back on, or if somebody else would like to have it. It wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. Like I'm willing to share, but probably a resolution would be required to allow me to do that.
Okay, Councillor Aitchison.
Before, after the last election, or after I became warden, they were picking people for the economic committee. And the chairman, Mr. Cornell, asked me if I had anybody I wanted to recommend. And I said, yep, I could recommend Walter McKenzie. So that's how you get on there. I had no resolution from council. I guess I did have a state of emergency declared, so I sort of had some ability to do that. But I appointed you as the warden to continue on that committee, and I'm assuming they've just hoping you might stay. They are looking for some continuity, I know.
Yeah.
That's up to council though. I'm just giving you the history of how he got put there the last time. That was my doings.
Okay, Councillor Duncan.
I'd be willing to make a motion that we reappoint Walter.
Okay, and seconder, Sir Aitchison. You're willing to let your name?
I guess, yeah, it's interesting. I guess the highlight of that committee, and they made a presentation to county council last year. Programs that they had put together and how they lobbied the province and that. So it's kind of a committee that's made up of I don't know how many different aspects: government officials, OMAFRA, economic development. Just a massive group of people, and of course we've been meeting by Zoom. There could be 30 different organizations involved there, and get a report from one and how they interlock and how you lobby, for a bit of attention and probably some funding as well. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, Walter. Is there any other business anyone has? Any announcements?
Again, I do have, gotta bring it up here, one other item. And I gave you the wrong date, Lori, on February the 5th, we have a resident that resides in West Perth that will be 106. And I think she could very well be the oldest resident in Perth County. I'm not sure. But I think it would be fitting if we could acknowledge that with maybe a certificate from the county. Acknowledge that accomplishment. She's certainly been around for a while.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything else? Jason?
Well, just that announcement. We have a resident of Perth South, resident of Perth County. Dean Aitchison. Yes, I will admit she is related. She just got awarded an Order of Canada about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then yesterday she got another award for something Ontario Senior, and I just didn't have a chance to read it all. Again, perhaps the county should acknowledge that because that is special to be an Order of Canada recipient.
Sure. Okay, yeah, we can do that.
And I'm not sure if I did mention this individual's name, but probably should be recognized. And it's Jean Mitchell. Jean Mitchell from Mitchell. That will be 106.
Okay, good. Anything else? No, we have a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw 3914-2023. Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, the corporation of the county of Perth at its regular meeting held February 2nd, 2023 is read a first, second, and third time and finally passed February 2nd, 2023. Need a mover and a seconder, Councillor Kasenberg, Councillor Chinkowski, excuse me, all in favor? Carried. And that the meeting, council meeting be adjourned at 12:04. Moved by Duncan. Duncan, yeah, okay. You had his hand up and I said, Duncan. When I go home.
I'm the cute guy.
Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Duncan, all in favor, carried. Sorry, guys. Thanks, everyone. Good morning. We've got through a lot of the budget. Hopefully, maybe the next meeting will finish it off or is close to it.